One. Welcome back. Welcome back. Another episode of Cerebral Pundits.
Yeah.
I'm the host, Casey Blueford, joined by my favorite co-host, Evita Miller. What is up, Evita? How we doing?
Good. How are you?
We haven't chatted via podcast in a little while. It's been we had some
Oh,
stuff we had to take care of, so it's good to be back.
yes. Life happens, and in a good
Li-
way. We just had all
li-
the things happening at the same time, so we
Like
decided to be present, and now we're back.
absolutely. So anyone that's listening to this, it is, man, dude, it's second quarter. It's April 8th of 2025. Crazy to think that it's already quarter two. Crazy to think that it's already April.
Yeah.
And crazy to think that we are finished with Squad Up Summit, which we'll talk about here today.
Yeah.
We are on book number 4 in our book club. We're going to talk about that a little bit today as we
Yeah.
might revamp that a little bit. And we're also working on a new intro. So we got a lot of things kind of brewing right now.
Yeah.
We got a lot of things brewing.
things.
What has been up in your world? How you been?
I'm good. Honestly, I was just telling somebody the other day, I'm like, when you know these big events are coming up, like, especially now that I went once, I'm like, I know it's going to be a blur. And I'm trying to,
Yeah.
like, take a step back, enjoy it, be present. And
Right.
I'll be darned, you show up, you're there, back home. And I'm like, not only am I back home, it's already been several days. I'm like, what the heck?
I know. That to me, that's the craziest thing. That was like, not only is it done, like it's already been a week past, and I'm like, okay, that just kind of came and went, right? So
Yeah, it's like you
let's
prepare so much and look forward to it. And then you're
yeah,
like, and it's not like it's short days. I mean, we'll talk more, but I'm like, you're
yeah.
going hard all day, every day. And then it's like, how
Seriously.
did it still go by so fast?
So let's kind of get into it. So
Yeah.
our usual process of reviewing, internet content, we're going to kind of put that on the back burner today. We're going to talk a little bit about like what is life like post conference. So anytime you go to a conference, what does that entail?
Yeah.
Takeaways, and we're also going to talk a little bit about a book that we read, Cues, which kind of goes hand in hand with just interactions in general. So let's get into it a little bit more today. So 2 weekends ago, end of March, we had what's called our Squad Up Summit conference. It's a mega conference for our community that we are involved and engaged in. And man, it was 3 days of networking, 3 days of speakers, 3 days of all things investing, whether it's real estate, whether it's business, whether it's RV parks, any type of investment, all in general.
Yeah.
All in the Dallas Hilton Convention Center, Ballroom Convention Center. So a lot happened in a short amount of time. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that process. And what I want to talk about first is going from the 2024 conference to the 2025 conference. So going into this year's conference, which was both of our second time going around.
Yeah.
What was that process like for you? How did you feel kind of going into this year?
I feel like you still get a little bit of the same, I don't even necessarily want to say nerves, but more just like that anticipation. Especially if anybody knows me, I always have like a bunch of ideas. So then it's also the narrowing down of like, okay, what makes sense? What really matters when it's crunch time? Like, what are we doing here? But I think it was more of just an anticipation this year versus, at least for me personally, last year going into it, there was a lot more just change personally going into that. I knew I would know people when I got there, but I had technically, yes, don't judge people, but it was my first trip solo. And so there was a lot of,
we won't talk about that today.
yeah, but I mean, like, it was just different in several ways. And that was one thing that was like really huge to overcome for me of going, I was really blessed. Heather could gifted me a ticket. Otherwise I wouldn't have been there. And so there was just a lot of overlapping things. And last year, I mean, it was like 3 days plus, I went to everything. So I was there.
Yeah.
I'd already been to 2 meetups before we even started.
Yeah. Last year was heavy. Yeah. That's all. Yeah. That's awesome. And also last year at this time, you had kind of, you were part of the community before the event, obviously, but like it wasn't too much longer before, right?
No,
a few months.
It's only been a few months.
Yeah, so I think there's that newness and that everything was fresh and like you mentioned your first trip. So
Just
Um,
feeling like the new kid.
yeah. So with that said, how did you feel at the conclusion of this one? Because we'll talk about, you were out here in Dallas, Texas, where the event was, and so I know
Yeah.
you were only able to attend parts of it, but tell me about how you left this one compared to how you left last year.
No, I think I left both having a positive experience. I think I left less drained this year. I was I was definitely
You was doing a lot last year. You was doing a lot. You was everywhere last
I
year.
didn't stop. And granted, I did the same this year, but it was just less time. And I also think I just kind of realized, okay, go with it. You know, this is a marathon, not a race. Like, just enjoy it and, meet as many people as you can, but recognize, some people wanted to plan meetings and stuff. And I just told them, look, I said, one, I'm me, but two, these things are just there's so much happening. I don't even know where I'm going to be, let alone to try to find you in the wilderness and try to connect. So it's like, hey, we'll try to look for each other's face or whatever. But no, I think I left both with a positive light. I think I definitely had some learning moments, but also just good connections of whether it was somebody new or just being able to sometimes you know these people, but you've only seen them on Zoom. You only see their face, And so there's the people you see them on meetings and you kind of feel like you know them. Like, kind of realize you don't really know them.
That's a weird feeling though. Definitely a weird thing.
Meet people or re-see people that you haven't seen in a while. I know a lot of us consider it almost just like a big family reunion. And that's what it feels like, is every moment you're turning, it's not a typical conference where you're like being forced to go. Like we're choosing to go if we want to be there, which is really cool to be a part of.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I would say for me, it's interesting. So looking back on going into the conference last year in 2024, I went into the conference still kind of on my search, on my journey, and I almost went there feeling the need for like validation. And I was able to actually, I didn't necessarily need to do that, but that's just kind of how I was feeling. But I got that validation, so to speak. And I remember leaving that conference and telling myself, okay, it's time to turn this shit up, right? That's what I told myself. Like it's time to, because I remember leaving thinking, yo, I know about this field that I'm in. I know more about than a lot of people. Yeah. And I was able to answer a lot of questions, help a lot of people out, but I didn't necessarily have a proof of concept yet. So in this year, it was a little bit different. For one, it's in my home city, which is a blessing and a curse at the same time because I didn't go the entire conference because it was at home. So I kind of split like, a day and a half here, a day here, a day here, half a day. So that's one thing I probably will look forward to next year is being able to like engage in the full on conference activities, kind of like I was last year.
Be more immersed.
Yeah, exactly. Be a little bit more immersed in it. But I think all in all, we discussed this. I don't know if we discussed this here or off camera. Yeah. It is nice to hear the speakers. Like it was cool to hear like David Goggins, but like once he started speaking, I realized he's going over both of his books that I just read early last year. So I'm like, okay, like I've kind of been down this before. So the speakers are always nice, but it really is like the networking piece. It's the the almost status updates for everybody. Yeah. And for me, I was able to kind of come into this year feeling like not necessarily like I made it per se, but knowing where I was last year, but compared to where I am this year, just like, okay, like now I actually have some proof of concept I can talk about. It was really cool to have a gentleman tell me he'd listened to our podcast and heard about the journey. And
I was hoping you would share that. I think that's
that was pretty cool, man. It was just like I was like, maybe I'm going viral. Like maybe I'll be an influencer. Like maybe this is the start of something. Like, no, in all seriousness, it was just cool to be able to give back a little bit more this year, and come from a place of like, hey, I know what it's like. I've been there. I'm still there, right? I'm still going through this. But if you keep persevering, like a year later, maybe you'll be able to feel like the same type of like satisfaction, right? So, but then also like. All that said, like that's why I said like I didn't make it, because all that said, like I love hearing the journeys about other people and like what they're doing, and that's inspiring to me. Like, all right, Casey, like you're doing okay, but like there's still more to go. There's a lot of people doing some really awesome things. So that's all I would say. It's just very inspiring. very humbling, but at the same time, very appreciative.
That's awesome. I want to share too, like, I know we're kidding about being an influencer and stuff like that, but I also think that's important. Like when we started this, we shared how it's really easy to feel like, everybody has a podcast, or who wants to hear this, or, there's just so many things that you could let stop you. And I feel like we chose to just do this of like, if no one else sees this, we're having a good time, we're learning as we go. This is worth it for us either way. And if someone else happens to watch and get either some entertainment or knowledge or what inspiration, whatever it is that they take away from this, even better. Like that's a bonus. And so I don't know about you, but I'm like, I didn't expect something to happen like that for you, like so soon. Like it feels, it feels like I know it's not necessarily super new, but like it feels like we're just getting going. And so I think that's at least for me, even just hearing the story from you, it wasn't my encounter, but just hearing that, I feel like is motivation to kind of realize, hey, when you're hunkered down with the blinders on, like this is what it's about. You never know where your words or message will get to, and how easily that could track back. And when you hear it, it's like, oh wow, you not only checked it out, but now we're able to sit here and you were able to talk to somebody about businesses, or they were interested and you can help them because we were just sitting here and talking about stuff we would regularly talk about.
No, it's so true. It's one of those situations. It's almost like being a parent when, you have little kids and they're watching and hearing everything that you do, but you don't realize it because you're kind of so stuck in your activity, your work, whatever. But they're watching everything, and that's kind of how I felt. Was like, oh, this gentleman, there might have only been 6 people that watched anything that we did, right? But like, he listened and he was able to talk to me about it, and I was able to kind of help guide him through like some of the stuff that he was working on. And even if it's just one person, that makes a huge difference for me. And that, to your point, it was like almost like remotivating into like, all right, going down the right path. There's a couple things I've been thinking about how we can tweak this, how we can make it, just to take it to a different level. So it was just cool. It was exciting. So I'm definitely very appreciative.
I just thought, I'm like, I know we make jokes, but I was like, it's actually a pretty cool moment. So
yeah, no, you're right. No, you're right. It really was though. It really was a cool moment. So, but yeah, so before we get into like some of the book stuff, let's talk about what that life is like post conference. So you leave a conference, and granted, I spent maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 hours or maybe 12 hours total at the conference this year. I know you had a wedding that you had to go to, and you were there a couple days. Then you were in town for a couple of, so you had a long week, right?
Yeah,
so
ongoing.
But when you leave these conferences, there's so much adrenaline. There's so much, you hear so much, you see so much, like you talk with so many people. There's like so many things that you want to do. So what is life looking like for you post conference? So yeah, all odds been a week, 2 weeks, but like, what are some of your goals? Like, what are you tracking? What are you heading down towards?
It's interesting because I feel like a lot of people talk about this like post conference, either they're extra hyped or even like almost like a post conference crash, where I heard somebody the other day referencing like you go to summer camp, you come back and it's like nobody understands why you're tired of all this stuff, like no one gets it. And so to an extent, I feel a mix of maybe some of those things. Personally, I don't feel anything extreme, if I'm being quite honest. If anything, I more felt like it was an incredibly amazing pit stop, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Where it was like, we checked in, you learned some things, you got to meet a lot of great people, or check in with them, how is it going, or kind of feel out how you're feeling in that environment. And I feel like now it's more of a keep going.
Right. Okay.
Keep going. You're starting to figure it out. You're starting to get on your path. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Just be you and keep going. Like that's kind of how I feel leaving it. And if anything, I also feel like getting to see people in person. Everybody's busy. And so there were even like little moments, me, I care a lot about my relationships with people, of just even check-ins and going like, oh my God, we're good. You're just slammed. Well, what the heck are you working on? And just even that of like, or hearing people going, oh man, I see what you're doing here. And you're like, kind of like the podcast. I'm like, you do? And it's kind of like, okay. Yeah. If anything, I felt more just comfortable in my own skin. And so I think, for me, it was more of just the keep going. I don't think it was anything extreme, or I didn't have any like, those huge aha moments that some of the others did, but I thought it was cool to witness a few of those as well.
Yeah, and we're not going to get into it, but hopefully, we won't get into the whole situation. But hopefully, we're able to come to closure for a few things for you too.
Yeah.
Some of these we talked about offline, so like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully you were.
It's uplifting too, right? Like to see people and just like, I got to see people like Darren or, some of the people I don't see as often and be like,
yeah,
holy cow, how the heck is it going? Like, tell me everything, and it's nice to see everybody leveling up together, in their own respects. If they're new, maybe their leap this year there's a few people that it was their first year going. And so that was cool to see equally. It doesn't necessarily mean somebody that like, you don't have to be the person doing 500 deals or anything crazy. Sometimes that leap is like, I made it here this year. I'm doing it. I just joined a team or, there was a lot of little wins along the way that it was cool to see.
Yeah, no, I'm aligned with you on that. I think that, I left the conference and after that week, it was one of those, okay, just keep going. That was kind of my notion. Like just keep going because your year over year progress is being seen and is being heard. So just keep going. And if anything, like go harder than you thought you were before.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't anything drastic. It wasn't anything overhauling or anything like that. It was just one of those like just keep down the path. Just keep down the path. So I feel like I'm in potentially going to be starting a new season. So the end of one season is the beginning of another season. So absolutely. We shall see.
I think this is good to talk about too, because I do think there's some sort of sometimes almost expectations going into these that you should leave and like maybe have more clarity or have these big aha moments or whatever. And I think that's really key too as we go to these for ourselves and just for anybody listening too. Maybe they've felt this way of recognizing like, and I kind of thought that too, we have a lot of these types of calls of discussions of, prepping for it, but then also the aftermath of, okay, now what? You learn something, how do you apply it? You felt this way, how do we change it or whatever, keep going and all of that. But I think it's key to remember that like, well, where are you at now? And there might be something here, like I was thinking about it and I'm like, I might come back in a couple years or a year or two and have a totally different mission going in or a totally different thing where, oh, my goal is now I need to raise X amount of capital, or I might go in like I need buyers or I'm building a team, it can shift. And I think there's also, it's totally okay and normal too to some years be like, yeah, it was a great event. It's not taking from it. It was great. We're still in the stage. And when we get clarity, we'll tackle it. But otherwise right now, it's just like, keep going.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Honestly, I'm thankful. Hopefully my goal is to try to get to one more of these this year. Trying to target 2 type of events a year.
Nice. Do you have any that you have your eyes on?
Not specific right now. So I got a couple that are kind of in the air. It just all depends on time of year and kind of where I'm at with everything. But to me, they're kind of like checkpoints.
Yeah.
Right. So if I can find 1 or 2 a year, that'll be good checkpoints, and that way I can kind of see and strive towards a certain place. So
that's awesome. Well, I'm excited for you wherever you end up.
Cool. So that down, we're going to talk a little bit about this book that we read. It's called Cues. And it's funny because Cues, it's by Vanessa Van Edwards, and Cues actually talks about the art of charismatic communication. So I'm not exact. So it's funny because like we read this and then we go to this conference, you're interacting with all these people. Yeah. And I'm really big on like nonverbals, cues and whatnot. So in these conversations, like with people, like I'm noticing certain things. Right. So we're not going to go full on book club, because it's just me and you tonight. But all in all, I had read one of her previous books. I believe this is probably your first book that you read of hers. What were your thoughts on this book, though?
I really enjoyed it.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah, and I think
it's a good blend of like people and science. Like it's a good blend.
Yes, and I also think where we're at right now, it's very applicable because, like you said, we just came from a conference, but you're interacting with people all the time. So I feel like we don't necessarily have to be in the same industry or doing the same things for this to apply. You can pick up on these things, and she uses different cues in the sense of it could be on a Zoom, it could be through an email, it can be, you know, it doesn't have to literally be like I'm in person recognizing these things or utilizing this. And so,
Yeah.
I just thought it was a good theme to have, and to just, if nothing else, food for thought. You know, maybe you don't understand or do all of it now, but just kind of building that awareness.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the early themes that she talks about was the difference between like um, warmth and confidence. So that like being able to like come off as warm, and then being able to come off as competent, and like trying to find that healthy balance in between each one's. And I say that because just this past weekend or past couple weekends ago during our conference,
Yeah.
depending on who I was talking to, I would dial up my warmth a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or if I'm talking to someone I know who's a little bit more ahead of me, I'm going to dial up maybe my confidence a little bit more, or vice versa, just depending on the situation. So, like in hindsight, I'm looking back now, I'm like, okay.
There's
In this
something to this.
conversation, I was kind of more in this space. In this conversation, I was kind of more in this space. So I thought that was kind of cool, just like the difference between how our personalities can differ, just in our personalities can differ, and just small differences in conversations. I thought that was pretty sweet.
That's awesome. Do you feel like you're a blend? I mean, we're all probably somewhat of a blend of them, but do you feel like you kind of easily lean more one way or the other, or it's pretty easy for you to shift back and forth?
I think it's pretty easy to shift back and forth for me, but I would say
or is one more natural, I guess would be a more appropriate question.
I think my competence is probably more natural to me. I think the warmth I have to dial in sometimes, because while I might come off as happy-go-lucky, sometimes I just don't have it. So I have to play it up. Yeah,
No.
sometimes it's just like my RBF is like that's my, so like that's not necessarily always warm for me. So I lean a lot more towards the competent side of things. Growing up, I was always taught, why are you always so serious? Why so serious? Like, why you always look so serious? So like the warmth has been something. Yeah, so the warmth has always been something I have to kind of dial in a little bit more.
I love that. I love how she called it to a resting bothered face.
Oh, I like that. Yes, you're right. The resting bothered face.
It's RBF is a resting
bothered face. Yes.
Even though we're all gonna say it the other way in our head.
Yeah, that B doesn't change, right? Most people keep the B the same.
I think I can do the same, to your point, and I think whether it was innate or just something we've learned over time, because obviously it's not the first time I've been around people like that or had to, customer service or different encounters. So, I mean, there is a certain level, you kind of realize who you're around, right? Of who am I talking to? And you can pick up on it real quick and go, oh, my bad, and adjust. But yeah, no, I think it's probably obvious. I'm definitely probably more warm.
No, I would have never guessed that.
Every person I saw at the conference was like, oh my God, I'm so excited to see you. And we run, give a hug and chit chat and all the things. That's the vibe.
You definitely really warm. I'm one of those like, hey, how's it going? Good. All right, so what's up? Like let's get down to business.
I mean,
even at my
even on
my day job, it's like, all right, hey, what's going on, Casey? I'm good. Yeah, so what do you need? Like let's skip all the shenanigans. Like, tell me what you need. So I definitely have to definitely have to reel in the warmth a little bit more.
It's funny. And I'm the opposite. I have to realize sometimes where I'm like, oh, okay, you don't want to chat. Okay, no problem. We need to work on it. Dial it back.
One of the parts that she talks about, this is for sure me, is hands. What to do with your hands when you're speaking, right? So open palms means like acceptance and open. But for me, I notice a lot, and I try to be more mindful of it, but it still happens. Like when I'm speaking, like I want to go like this all the time, yeah, because sometimes I don't know what to do. Like it's
almost like you're like sit on your hands where you're like,
I just put them. Yeah, so that is one of the things that like still to this day I actively have to like share with myself, especially if I'm in a deep conversation. When it's just a casual conversation, like it's fine, it's whatever.
Yeah.
Right. But like in a deep conversation that's a little bit more heavier, competent, Like I have to, it's hard for me just to talk with my hands at my side. It's one of those like hands here or hands here, or you know what I mean, or hands, you know, down low. Yeah, the hands is always throw me off.
That's me. I feel like don't keep a glass open close to me because I'm always like,
Yeah, so but it's only during the competent conversations, like the warm conversations. Yes, use your hands, go crazy, right? But when it's competent, like you want to be able to like share, right? But at the same time, you don't want to. I don't want to keep doing this, or I don't want to DJ while I'm talking to you, right? I don't want to be like, right? So like those are like some of the small things. It's like you know. So like those are things I got to keep in mind.
Yeah, I thought some of those were, when you said that, it stood out to me too when she was talking about presentations and how, I think that was in this book, maybe not, but like people who just pace, you know, it's like the nervous, like they're just pacing back and forth, or it loses intentionality, you know, and like even your gestures, keeping them, it's like unless you're really trying to emphasize them, okay, go bigger, or keep it smaller and you can articulate, you know, maybe a big idea or something very important or positive versus something smaller or negative, but to keep it, I think she referenced a strike box. Okay, your strike box, and basically if you can, do your best to keep any gestures or motions kind of in this area, you know, and that will keep you looking still very composed and intentional.
Yeah, I what was one of the other things I noticed on here was emails and messaging. Like, so it's funny because like during emails and messaging, I'm very warm. I'm actually probably more warm during email and messaging versus being competent. But in person, I come off very competent. So like I almost do that unintentionally without realizing it. But I always try to take into the fact like how are they going to feel reading this? Because you could always misinterpret something via text, via email. So like I try to make it as warm as possible. Sometimes probably really overly warm, but I always think like, could they take this the wrong way if you read this the wrong way?
Yeah.
So like, what does the tone read on this one? So I thought that was interesting when she talked about that and just like the importance of like,
oh yeah,
that double checking.
I'm like,
you said what?
I said that hit home. Oh my gosh, yo, emails are underrated. I don't care what anybody says. Like that is a craft, you know, because to your point, you want to be, I feel like this is my everyday is going through email.
That's true.
It's also still, I'm sure people that have done this for years to use it, you know, maybe it was, you're in a certain type of job where it's a similar style or whatever, you know, maybe you've done it so much that you're just on autopilot. But I mean, heck, I'm a year, almost 2 years into this, and I still have so many times that I'm doing just what you said, or I'll read it back, read it out loud, ask someone, hey, if you were, I just did this last week. I had one where I was like, hey, if you were to receive this, and it was somebody like third party, didn't use names or anything like that, but was just like, if you heard this without context of me telling you what I'm trying to say, how would you receive it? You know, because it really is true of sometimes you need the competence, but you also don't want to be rude or overly, you know, I have to work on, for me, it's usually dialing it back. So I think if anything, sometimes mine end up more the competence, and I probably could have allowed some warmth, but I'm so worried like these people are busy. They don't want all your
fluff. They don't want your fluff.
Yeah. So it's hard. It's interesting finding that balance.
What were your thoughts when they were talking about like body position, body placement? So you know, they'd say, you know, I love when she talked about you can always tell who's the most important person in the room by where their toes are facing. Like, is your toes facing this person? And I actually remember that at the conference and talking to a few people.
I thought about it there.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, who, like, you know, anytime there's like a small group, okay, where's everybody facing, right? So like, I try to like apply some of these things to like real life, you know, scenarios.
Yeah.
But how are you as far as body placement and just like posture and just in general, like your mannerisms during speaking? Do you feel like you're all over the place? Do you feel like you got a good solid foundation? What would you say?
I think in recent times I've built awareness. Like she talks about, like she now knows where she could improve. And so when she's in certain situations, like for example, okay, you have RBF, so you're sitting there in a meeting okay, she talked about different tweaks she'll make. She'll try to open her eyes a little bit more or adjust her face and lean forward to like give it more warmth, knowing I might be received as angry and I'm genuinely not. I'm just sitting here listening to what you're saying. So I think I'm hitting that stage. There's definitely room for improvement. I have to be cautious of, they were talking about like when you're trying to cover yourself, because I'm guilty of that. I tend to sway. I tend to like my hands are moving, or like the self-soothing, or like I'm guilty. I do her thing. I always have a glass, but like, I always have my water with me, or I do tend to like cross my arms or things like that when I'm getting uncomfortable, or sometimes just like the anxiety of things. And so I think, like I said, it's progress. So I think I'm better than maybe where I've been, but there's definitely room for growth there. Or recognizing sometimes I end up in these marathon conversations and then hearing this and realizing, oh my God, it's because I'm literally, my body is telling them, sure, keep talking. And I'm
that's such a good point, because that's such a good point, because I think I do the opposite. I think I shut down conversations earlier because my body's giving off a like, all right, I'm done. Right.
Oh no,
even though
quite the contrary. Mine, when I was younger, used to be like, do I have written on my forehead and like, talk to me, tell me your life story.
Keep going.
Yeah, which to be honest, most of the time I don't mind, but there are occasions, like if anybody knows me, yes, I'm super chatty and I actually do love to talk to people, but there are occasions where it's like, ooh, I really have to leave to get to this meeting. Or like when I'm at the conference and I was actually headed to the bathroom and now here I am like an hour later in the same spot and I'm like halfway there. So close. I would, because I always say, I'm like, I wish I had a better way to exit conversations appropriately. And I think this book gave me more confidence to go, okay, but what are some things, even if you didn't verbally say it, what are some things I could do that are still polite, but gesture that, you know, time to move on, or I'd rather not discuss this topic, or whatever it is.
That's awesome.
You do.
I think to bring it full circle, like, I mean, there's so many like little key tidbits from this book.
Yeah.
Before I kind of bring it full circle, was there any other like tidbits that you wanted to point out on here?
I don't know if any major. You're right. There was just a lot of little takeaways. I highly recommend anybody's even kind of interested, just read it. I mean,
it's just cool. It's just very interesting because you start to assess people and situations a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think I also liked the real life examples as well. They used an example of, I mean, right off the bat, the beginning of the book, they talk about the gentleman that pitched on Shark Tank, the Ring doorbell cameras that we see. I mean, that's like saying Kleenex now. I mean, it's just a household name. But at the time, talking about they dissect his presentation and sharing all the moments that he could have done something differently, but also how if he had read the audience and picked up on cues, whether it was part of the presentation or not, he could have adapted and strengthened his presentation in that moment. And so I liked those examples a lot too, where it was very
applicable. It was very applicable.
Yeah, and you could hear it and like picture yourself. Oh shoot, what are some time? Or now, I mean, I have moments where, you know, you catch yourself doing something. It's like, oh shoot, or you pick up on somebody else and you're thinking, ooh, they were, I think, trying to tell me this, and I didn't hear that, or it took me a little longer. That's why this conversation was a little bit tougher for us, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think, you're 100% right. And like I was mentioning, but when I bring it full circle, this is one of those books to where like it's almost like the subtle reminders.
Yeah.
Because we know some of these things, but we just indirectly do certain things. We operate certain things. And when you're in certain environments, your natural instinct is to do this. Your natural instinct is to act this way. So these are reminders, but also like skills that we have to apply. You know, some of these things I know I need to work on, and I need to actively be aware of it and educate myself on how to improve it. So I thought this is a great guide. This is a great just like social people guide. If you love meetups, if you love just interacting with people and just want to improve your social skills, like this is a great book for that.
Absolutely. I think how to leverage it. I thought about, you know, the TC world we talk about quite frequently being more introverted, or I don't know how to sell myself. And I thought of that. I mean, I think it's towards the end of the book, but I forget the phrase she used, but essentially say something is supposed to be a statement. your services are X amount, but you ask it as a question. And so naturally, that makes the person on the other end see it as now they start scrutinizing. They almost don't believe you. They want to start looking into everything else. And there was keys like that where I went, okay, this doesn't even have to do with us not talking to people. How do we better the conversations we're already having? Or like if our buddy asked us, we would have said, oh, $20, not even thinking. But with them, oh, we start to lack confidence. We question ourselves and we're like, it's 2020, you know? And the next thing you know, you can't figure out why things just aren't landing. And so, you know, I resonate with that way, but I think it can be applied to many things.
Yeah, definitely got to work on my nonverbal cues here and be a little bit more inviting at times. So, but no, this is good. So, yeah, for anybody that does want to check out this book, please, Cues by Vanessa Van Edwards. Great book.
Absolutely.
All right, that down. Before we get out of here, I want to talk about some of the changes that we're excited about that we're going to be implementing and we're still actively working towards. So we're going to be revamping the pod for anyone that's listened to it or will listen to it. We're going to be revamping the pods. We had a really good time with March Madness episode. We're doing the brackets with the TV shows. So we're going to do a more of a job, a better job, so to speak, of bringing on more guests, having more conversations, and we're going to really focus on specific topics for a month at a time. This way will allow us to kind of really hone in on specific categories, topics, and utilize different platforms or methods of communication to still share the message. So whether it's a podcast, whether it's music, TV shows, even it's an interview, that way we can kind of really encompass as much as we can under like one specific topic or whatnot. So we're excited about it. We shall be back with the intro soon with maybe some music to go along with that.
Yeah.
But I think we're really just kind of double down on what we've been doing and try to add a little bit more fun and newness and just different personalities in this as well.
Yeah, no, we're just learning as we go. So we appreciate everybody's patience and, just want to make some tweaks and try to do, like you said, do better, but also just make it more interesting or valuable from the other side as well.
Absolutely. So, all right, what do you got going on? What's coming up? Anything new?
Nothing new. Just, getting back to the grind and sticking with it. And I'm like, the joke is always, I never have more business than when I take vacation.
Yeah.
So I'm like, who knows? We might be planning the next one, but no, it's good to be home and back to things. And we've got some family birthday parties coming up soon and things of that nature. So just continuing to work on the projects that are already in motion. How about for you?
Love it. Same. In the process of kind of launching an additional business as well. We'll have to talk about that once I kind of get it really, really up and running. But
okay.
Yeah, just trying to diversify this portfolio, man, and really, really take it to the next level. So
how exciting.
I'm excited.
We can't wait to hear the updates.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate anyone that does listen. We appreciate anyone that attends. We appreciate all the conversations that we had this past week. That's the reason why we do this. So, Evita, we'll talk soon. Have a good one.
Sweet. You too.
And we are out.